But Congressman Scott Perry's with us from the 10th Congressional District, and he joins us here on WSBA. Good morning, Congressman. How are you?
I'm well, Gary. Happy summer.
Happy summer to you, almost. June 21st, I guess, is the official one, but
right.
Memorial Day kind of kicks it all off, as we well know, and there you go. Wanted to start out with this morning. Tariffs on Mexico, 5% tariff. President proposing for June 10th, and then on the first of each month thereafter, starting July 1st, it will go up another 5% up to a total of 25%, again, for the purpose of telling Mexico we don't want them to be the transit point or the staging point for more illegal invasion of our country. What's your thoughts on the president's tariffs? I know there's talks today between representatives of both countries about this, but it certainly raised a few eyebrows on Friday.
Sure. Look, I don't know what else the president is supposed to do. He's asked Congress, both Republican and Democrat, to do something regarding the situation at the border where, generally speaking, right now we can say that we're having record numbers of illegal crossers, illegal foreign nationals crossing our border. I think right now we're about the tune of about 5,000 illegally. That's in addition to legal immigration. And I just remind us all that the United States takes in more legal immigrants than any nation in the world every single year. But we have about over 5,000 a week right now coming to the United States illegally, and they're just coming through. And the president is. He's got a duty to defend the country, and this is an economic situation. This is a human tragedy situation, and Congress has been unwilling to act. Mexico has been unwilling to act. Unfortunately, much of Mexico is run as a narco state, so you got the illegal drugs coming in, you got the illegal human trafficking coming in, you got the illegal crime element coming in, and the Congress won't even approve the president's request for border protection, Homeland Security funding, just to keep the current policy.
Why is Congress so reticent to want to do anything on this?
In my opinion, this is my opinion, there are two sides of this equation. On the right, is influenced, so to speak, by cheap labor. Mm-hmm. So if you're a high school student, if you're a young college student wants to get a job, they're going to be competing with the cheap labor from Mexico. So that's the right's interest in keeping the status quo the way it is. On the left, I think it simply comes down to votes. And they've shown that there's a propensity to either have these folks vote. Even in Pennsylvania, you can look at our own secretaries of state that have let this go on and done very little, if nothing, about it. And that's what it comes down to. And so there's a coalition on the side of the status quo that right now is stronger than any coalition to do literally anything of meaning about this.
And it's really despicable to watch. I mean, both of them are willing to cash in our national security, all for selfish kinds of means for their particular point of view, be it cheap labor, be it more votes. I mean, the whole thing really, really stinks when this is what we're describing as service for our country and in the name of the public, which can't go out there and vote and so forth. Here we have representatives that were willing to cash in and use all kinds of political nonsense semantics to try to talk their way around it.
You know, we got close in the last Congress, and this is where, people have to understand that being a member of the Freedom Caucus gets you things. I mean, we could not get our leadership agreed to have a vote on a bill on immigration and the year before. If you remember, President Trump gave us till about, I think it was March 21st or thereabouts, don't quote me on that, but it was sometime late March, a deadline to get something done, and it was all based on his rescinding the deferred action for childhood arrivals policy of the previous administration. And when the courts upheld that and he couldn't rescind it, the pressure was off, and our leadership wouldn't do anything, and we forced them to come to the table and have a vote on the bill. Now, eventually, the bill didn't pass. It usually takes about 218, depends on membership any given day. It takes 218 to pass. We got 193, if my memory is correct on that. And I went to the speaker and I said, and keep this in mind, Gary, this is a bill that the leadership did not want. They worked against. We still got 193 votes on it. The bill that they wanted got 121 votes.
Wow.
And I went to the speaker, I went to Paul Ryan, and I said, Mr. Speaker, we are so close, 20 votes. We can go get those votes. Let's go work at it. And he said the conversation's over. We didn't get it, and the conversation's over. And my point is and look, it's not to impugn Paul Ryan. There were other voices in the conference that said, we don't want to do this. And I'll just keep this in mind too. These were all Republican votes. We didn't have one Democrat vote on either one of these things. And so now, Ms. Pelosi, the speaker, is in charge. Do you think she's going to bring up immigration?
No.
When every 6 months we create a new congressional district somewhere in the United States?
No, you're exactly right. And that's, again, that's a shift of the tide there. Again, a lot of people are looking at tariffs, and I'm one. I'm not a big fan of tariffs, okay? I don't believe that the president should be using the tariff on Mexico. And I'm not so sure about the one on China either in this whole trade war. I'm trying to understand them. I mean, I'm keeping an open mind on it, but I've never been a fan of them. And yet, at the same time, the one thing the president can be given credit for on the border situation is keeping the light on bright and clear. I mean, he is not letting up on that. And so in that regard, he's doing that by suggesting a tariff. Now, whether or not that goes through, whether or not that's for real will remain to see. But we do know with China, the trade war that's going on right now, tariffs are a real situation. And obviously, in your particular district, in this state, with agriculture, the president, putting out what I think it was $12 billion last week to prop them up. They're getting hurt right now by the tariffs. Talk a little bit about that, if you would.
Yeah, of course we're getting hurt, and we don't like it. But what are the options? We either continue to accept poor behavior from both China and Mexico vis-a-vis the United States, or we do something. And what are our options? We can sanction them. I think we can impose tariffs, which essentially are going to be somewhat similar to sanctions, maybe more directed. And I think that these tariffs should be more directed than more broad. That would be my one criticism. Or I suppose we could go to war. I mean, but that's not a viable alternative to this situation. But I think it's important, Gary, to put this all in context here. So, yeah, we don't like the tariffs, and essentially we pay more as consumers for the goods because Mexico is just going to, and essentially it just cost the individual consumer more money to pay for the Mexican or Chinese goods. But I would counter with this: why do we not seem to have any problem with paying the profits to Mexico and China for their cheap labor?
Right.
That could be those profits could be made right here in the United States, and instead we're willing to transfer them. Yep. In the case of China, to someone who's an adversary, someone who steals somewhere from $300 to $600 billion of intellectual property from the United States every single year.
In other words,
alone.
when people don't play by the rules, what other options do you have? Are the questions that you're asking here? WSBA Morning News with Gary Sutton. We have Congressman Scott Barry here this morning. So, President on the trip over to Great Britain this week during a time where Britain's going to be losing their prime minister, congressman, and also this whole Brexit thing has them on edge as well. So lots of stuff going on over there, too. Wanted to ask you a little bit more about this whole the trade war with China. What else can we do? I mean, what other things are available right now as China kind of officially has come out over the weekend and said, yeah, we're in a trade war here and we're not backing down?
Well, I think there are some other policy things that we can do, although there is little support for them. Quite honestly, I asked some folks in the administration about it. For instance, we have a lot of Chinese students studying in the United States of America, which is great because they learn about America and, generally speaking, juxtaposed to a communist system in China where the Chinese people are great. They're working and living under the yoke of an oppressive government. They take the ideas and the ideals of America home with them. The problem is, Gary, is one of the other things that they take by law home with them is the secrets, and not just the military or national security secrets, but trade secrets of the United States, oftentimes that are researched at universities and places of higher learning, but also in businesses under a scholarship or apprenticeship programs. and they literally take those home and they steal them and take them home with them by law in China. And I wonder, among other things, why we continue to allow this to happen. I wonder why we continue to allow China to wash the dirty, laundered money of North Korea through our stock market on Wall Street and in Chicago at the Mercantile Exchange. And those are financial things. So those are just two things, I think, from a policy perspective, where we can say to China, look, we're just going to make your life difficult. We're no longer going to allow you just free access to send every single student without very much vetting to stay here as long as they please and steal from us. And we're not going to allow you to use certain tenets of our financial system. And, of course, there's a great backlash to either one of those, from either the employment side, from employers who want these young people because of their technical skills and abilities,
right,
or from the financial sector because obviously they want to trade internationally and they want that money. But these are national security issues, and these are issues of economic security for the United States of America, and either we're going to defend ourselves against the Chinese economic war that has been waged for 2 to 4 decades right now against the United States, or we're just going to allow them to continue and nibble around the edges. And I think that's where we have to get to as Americans. We have to say that we're serious about this. And now's the best opportunity we have with an economy that's growing somewhere between 3 and 4% for the United States, and one that's literally contracting for China. This is our best opportunity, and if we're not going to do it now, then we can just plan to see every single job in manufacturing and otherwise that we have seen in America go to China.
I don't have a sense.
Couple decades.
I talked to a lot of people, and I don't have a sense that we have a real taste for security in our country right now, in a lot of ways. And, I sit back and I watch it with amazement, because if you're not going to defend your country, then you might as well go the way of, the internationalists, the globalists, all that kind of thing. I wanted to ask you about one other thing. Abortion laws versus Roe v. Wade. We just had the most recent one coming up here in Louisiana. We had the one in Missouri last week. We have one Planned Parenthood clinic left open right now. And the question I wanted to ask you was this. We got it. I mean, there's a group here that now it's right in your face saying, hey, there are no exceptions. That might be way on the other end to any kind of situation. Life of the mother might be the one that you'd have, but no exceptions in terms of rape or incest. On the other end, you know where Democrats stand on the Roe v. Wade situation. And here's my question for you. If Roe v. Wade was withdrawn, and if some of these pretty tough laws were put in, how do you enforce those with women who are going to still maybe go to have an abortion? Does that build up the number of backstreet kind of situations we have? About 30 seconds left. Your final thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it potentially does build up the number of backstreet things. And, of course, this has been a long time. This is a long fight brewing, and technology has really driven the discussion as we determine, earlier and earlier what a human life is. And it's really, really difficult to dispute that. And if you say that a heartbeat is what determines when we issue a death certificate, then how on the other end logically can you say that is not a life once it has a heartbeat, once the child has a heartbeat on the other side of the situation? And so we are heading for a national conversation on this subject again. And I think it's a good conversation, a necessary conversation to have, and that's why we have individual states who can bring these ideas to the fore and continue the conversation as we become more enlightened, as we learn more, as technology advances, all those type of things. And so this is just another issue where its time is coming. I think. That we're going to continue to have this national conversation.
And
where is the right place on the issue?
We're in it now. We're in the national conversation now. Where it goes is what remains to be seen. Congressman, thank you so much this morning for joining us. Appreciate your discussion of all the important issues that are hitting all of us today.
Yes, sir. You have a great day and a great week.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you soon, Gary. Thanks.
You too. Congressman Scott Perry with us here this morning on WSBA.